I might be a dark academia girly. I am as shocked as you are. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Read, Share, Repeat, where we discuss books from the perspective of an aspiring fantasy author. Me, Carrie Share. And today I am both excited and a little bit nervous to tell you that today's video is the start of my first reading vlog in I don't even know how long. So in the past, I would sometimes do just like a weekly reading vlog where I would talk about everything I was reading over the course of the week, which could sometimes not just include physical books, but also any books I was reading on ebook or on audiobook as well. I'm not gonna do that this time, partially because I want the vlog to be really, really focused, but also I am still like getting back into the swing of having a daily reading habit, and I don't want to put too much pressure on myself to read multiple books in one week. So we're going to just focus on one book, and the book I have chosen to read with you guys for this vlog is Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. Now, I know that R.F. Kuang's catalog has gotten a lot of mixed reviews over the last couple of years. Most people can agree that the Poppy War series is excellent, and everything else since has been kind of hit or miss. I have only ever read the Poppy War, and not even the whole series, just the first book. I think I read it back in like 2017 or 2018, and I did find it a little bit too dark for my tastes, especially back then when I was still really struggling with my mental health. But it was undeniable that R.F. Kuang was an excellent writer. And from everything I hear about the books she's put out since then, that is still the case. But your experience with her books may be a mixed bag just depending on your own tastes. So as someone who's only ever read the one book, and that was the better part of a decade ago, I'm coming into this with a little bit of a fresh perspective and no preconceived notions about what to expect. And I'm hoping that that means that I enjoy it more than I would have if I was more familiar with her catalog. I did read Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo earlier this year, and much to my surprise, really enjoyed it. So dark academia might be something that I'm into. We just don't know. So I am looking forward to trying another book in a similar vein and seeing how I like it or don't like it. Also, you may notice that this is my very beautiful Fairy Loot edition of this book. And if you watched my August TBR, you know that I am really nervous to be handling this book and be reading it, because with my special editions, I have always felt that if I don't like it, I would love to be able to pass it on to a fan of the book and someone who would love to have a very nice special edition. And so I don't want to damage it or make it any less pristine in any way, just in case I do end up passing it to someone else. So I won't be annotating it despite it being a physical book. That is just a compromise I have had to make with my special editions. I am going to be treating this guy really delicately. So with all of that out of the way, let's just get into the book itself. Grad student Alice Law has only ever had one goal: to become the brightest mind in the field of analytic magic. But the only person who can make her dream come true is dead, and inconveniently, in hell. And Alice, along with her biggest rival, Peter Murdoch, is going after him. But hell is not as the philosophers claim. Its rules are upside down. And if she's going to get out of there alive, she and Peter will have to work together. That's if they can agree on anything. Will they triumph, or will they kill each other trying? Oh my gosh. I don't even want to set it down, it's so dusty. Here's the inside of the dust jacket. And here is the naked hardcover. Sprayed edges. Here is the inside, the end pages, and the back. So without further ado, let's read page 1 of Katabasis. Chapter 1. For I deem that the true votary of philosophy is likely to be misunderstood by other men. They do not perceive that he is always pursuing death and dying. And if this be so, and he has had the desire of death all his life long, why, when his time comes, should he repine at that which he has been always pursuing and desiring? Plato from Phaedo. Cambridge, Michaelmas term, October. The wind bit, the sun hid, and on the first day of class, when she ought to have been lecturing undergraduates about the dangers of using the Cartesian severance spell to revise without pee breaks, Alice Law set out to rescue her advisor's soul from the 8 courts of hell. It was a terrible, gruesome accident that killed Professor Jacob Grimes, and from a certain point of view, it was her fault. And so for reasons of both moral obligation and self-interest, for without Professor Grimes, she had no committee chair, and without a committee chair, she could not defend her dissertation, graduate, or apply successfully for a tenure-track job in analytic magic. Alice found it necessary to beg for his life back from King Yama the Merciful, ruler of the underworld. Hey y'all, just checking in for a quick reading update. I have just finished the first 10% of Katabasis by R.F. Kuang, and you know what? I'm having kind of a good time so far. Granted, 10% isn't much, but I'm having a good time. I would be lying if I said I wasn't. I love that she gets right into it. She does not linger. She is not waiting around. She is not doing opening snapshots. She is getting directly into the action. And that is something I appreciate because that is also something that I tend to do with my own writing. I get right into the meat of things pretty darn quickly. And I love that we open up with our main character, Alice, like literally about to step into the like summoning circle to send her to hell. I love that. I love that we're not pussyfooting around at all. Of course, we are getting little bits of backstory as we go, which has also been fascinating. I love that we're finding out that this professor that they are going to rescue isn't a great person, and they are really rescuing him not for altruistic means by any stretch of the imagination. At least Alice isn't. Alice is purely focused on her career and what this professor was meant to do for her career before his untimely passing. So yeah, like I said, not really much to say other than I don't know, I'm kind of having a good time so far. I'm really, really fascinated to learn more about Alice's relationship with her academic rival. What's his name again? Peter Murdoch. It is hinted so far that they were much closer at one time, and then there was some sort of incident, and now they are kind of icy. Well, she's icy towards him. They're trying to keep each other at a distance for the most part, but they both need this professor, so they have embarked on a journey to hell. That's really all I've got for you so far was the first 3 chapters. Like I said, I don't know, I'm just sort of enjoying it. I'm enjoying this depiction of hell, which seems to be the afterlife for everyone, not just, you know, what you would think of people in hell. Kind of Greek, kind of classical, really, really interesting. Having a good time. I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. It was nice to be able to go in with absolutely no expectations because I think that has helped with my enjoyment. We will see if that bears out as I continue reading. I will check in with you when I hit the 25% mark. Hey y'all, it is now Saturday morning, and last night I reached the 25% mark of Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. I had a really interesting thought last night while I was reading, hence my one little tabby that I put in there kind of on a whim. I don't like to annotate my Fairy Loot editions. I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. There was one thought that I had while reading, and it was not really so much about the book. I mean, it was, but it was more about me because I am having a really good time so far. We are still kind of navigating the circles of hell with our 2 main characters, Alice and Peter, and they are still on the hunt for their professor. I don't want to say he's beloved, but he is very necessary for both of them apparently, but definitely not beloved, which I think is an interesting dynamic. And so in that respect, there hasn't really been a lot of movement. I mean, there's been a lot of movement, but not a lot of like new developments to discuss. But what struck me last night as I was reading is how much this book feels like a love letter to academia in general, in the way that Ninth House felt like a love letter specifically to Yale. I read Ninth House earlier this year, not for the channel, but just for myself, and I really liked it. I was surprised by how much I liked it. And one of the thoughts that I had was, am I a dark academia girly? I never would have pegged myself as someone who liked dark academia, and like on paper, it doesn't really sound like it's for me. But between my enjoyment of Ninth House and so far my enjoyment of the specific things that I am getting from this so far, I might be a dark academia girly. I am as shocked as you are. I want to just read quickly the passage that made me think about this more deeply. And this really speaks to what I said about it being a love letter to academia. Everyone knew that the nicer the library was, the better the work you did within it. Nice libraries meant donors, meant support, meant the time and resources to accumulate the best collections. More important, nice libraries put you in a certain frame of mind. You could unpack the precise same set of archives in the red cam or a nondescript warehouse, and still you'd do better work in the red cam. The atmosphere mattered. You became the thinker the library expected you to be. Nice libraries whispered, "Everyone who has passed through here is very important, and so are you." The reason that passage stuck out to me is, again, it just seems like my watch is creating a reflection on the ground, and the cat is very interested in that now. It's just a very loving way to describe the, oh, there he goes, the atmosphere of being in academia. And it got me wondering about why something like that would appeal to me, because I have never been to college before. I am taking online classes now as a much older adult, but I never lived in the dorms. I never attended school on campus, even a class. I've never had that traditional college experience. And so it made me kind of wonder if the reason this and Ninth House kind of appealed to me is because I missed out. And because I'm able to romanticize it because I never had that experience. And because in a way I still romanticize it as something I missed out on, because I did truly always want to go, it just wasn't in the cards for me. And so I just wonder if the reason passages like that appeal to me and I'm able to read this, I'm able to drink in these descriptions and these really loving detailed monologues on what makes academia so great, is because I never got to experience it. And because of that, I never got to experience the requisite lows that come with it, which Kwong does kind of touch on, but it's also romanticized. Something else I think might be interesting, depending on how it plays out, is whether or not the way the main character Alice romanticizes academia in character is ever addressed as something that is inherently a flaw, because romanticizing anything to that degree cannot be healthy. And I think Alice would agree with you that her obsession is also not healthy. And so I'm just kind of curious to see how that is addressed going forward. I think a lot about this book so far is the blinding of oneself to the flaws of something you love and something you're passionate about. And so I just wonder how that's going to be addressed later on. But all of that to say, I am enjoying this. This is making me really start to think that I am a dark academia girly. Now, I'm only 25% of the way in. And I have unfortunately heard that the middle part of the book is the biggest drag. So we'll see if my enjoyment holds out. But so far, yeah, I'm really enjoying myself. I don't really have much to say, no complaints really. I'm just kind of along for the ride and enjoying myself. And the really loving detailed descriptions of how great academia is and how great it is to be a student and to be in the mix and, be a scholar is kind of appealing to me in a way that I did not anticipate, and in a way that I don't think is necessarily tied to anything other than just longing for something I missed out on. It's been a while since a book made me think about my own life in that way, and so that in and of itself speaks to something. What, I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm enjoying myself. So the next time I will talk to you guys is when I hit the 50% mark of Katabasis. Hey y'all, just checking in with a quick book haul because today I took my daughter and some of her friends up to the mall and there was a bookstore and I told them, y'all go into whatever store y'all want, I'm going into the bookstore. And speak of the devil and she shall appear. This is the Rain Wilds Chronicles, the last series I need to complete my Robin Hobb Universe, Realm of the Elderling series, like the entire series. I think I mentioned it in my bookshelf tour video that I still needed one more and I was having trouble finding it, and lo and behold, Books A Million had all of it, and just sitting right prominently there in front was the Rain Wilds Chronicles, which again is the last one that I needed, and I was like, well, thank you very much. But you know your girl couldn't stop there. I also decided to pick up this very, very nice, shiny, you can't really tell but it's kind of shimmery copy of The Poet Empress by Chantal. Again, I did buy this on audio. Oh yeah. I was too taken by this edition. Now, if I want to read it for my fantasy bingo, I can read it physically. And then I picked up this naked hardcover copy of Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, which is book 3 of the Emily Wilde series. And I bought it specifically because I do have book 1 in this edition. So what I think I'm gonna do is go online and get book 2 and complete the trilogy. Pretty excited about this. Now, I haven't actually read this one, but it's on my list. And then finally, The Strength of the Few by James Islington. I did end up picking up the new special edition that they released when they did the re-release of The Will of the Many. And I had been kind of waiting to see if they would do a matching edition for it, and I saw it. Despite the fact that I haven't actually read it and that I am worried about my enjoyment of it, I now have both of these nice special editions of the Will of the Many and The Strength of the Few. And that's it. I'm not going to tell you how much it cost me. I forgot how much shopping at places that are not called half-price books costs, but I did have plenty of clinical trial money to spend, so I spent it. I am going to go get settled into my chair. I've got some homework that I need to do and some reading that I need to do as well. Hey y'all, just a quick update. I just hit the 30% mark of Katabasis, and I just have a quick comment that I thought was both funny and annoying. At the 30% mark, we have arrived at one of my most hated events / tropes that occurs in books, which is where the main female character uncovers incomplete information and then makes an enormous leap in logic that is clearly not going to pan out the way she's thinking, and it causes her to mistrust someone or take actions against someone that are clearly misguided. I hate that when that happens. It's my least favorite thing, and you see it a lot in romantasy especially, obviously not exclusive to that subgenre. But what was funny about it was that, like, literally on the previous page before the main character did this terrible leap in logic, like the narration was talking about how like she was bad at logic as like an academic discipline, and she had taken it because she had to, but it was never one of her strong suits. And then like on the very next page, she makes this like horrible like leap in logic based on, again, incomplete information. And it's just like, that was a little on the nose for me. Like, yeah, I can tell you're bad at logic. Anyway, I just thought that was funny and annoying. Hey y'all, it is the next day, and I have only actually read one chapter since I last spoke to you, but that chapter was an interesting look into our main character, Alice, that I just wanted to make note of here because I am not taking notes, which I should probably start doing if I'm going to be doing reading vlogs again. Alice is interesting to me. She has such a interesting inferiority complex in which anyone she perceives to be smarter or better than her in any way, she idolizes, which is so interesting for someone who has such ego that she also does, because she does have such ego and is such a stalwart academic. Earlier in the book, she was disdaining sex because it's the pursuit of something that isn't knowledge or anything related to academics. But the two male characters that she's connected to, and there's probably commentary that could be made on that aspect of it as well, but the two other characters that she is connected to, who she very obviously feels inferior to, she speaks very, very, very glowingly of. And even Peter, her academic rival, at first we are given to understand that she is his rival and doesn't really like him. But I'm only a third of the way through the book, and it's very clear that that is not the case. She, in a way, idolizes him to the same degree that she idolizes the professor that she's chasing. Her idolization of that professor is also very obvious. She literally said at one point that he's better than the sins of hell or whatever. Anyway, so it's kind of interesting. I hope that aspect of her character is explored and deconstructed, and it's not just, I don't know. It's just interesting to me, because also something else I noticed about her earlier is that for a graduate student, like a doctorate student of this very prestigious program and field of magic, she has a fondness for the undergrads at the school. And I just think that was kind of unexpected and sweet, that she appreciates them and has a sort of fondness for them, as opposed to what you would expect of this kind of character, which would be to disdain them, like her professor. Anyway, so Alice is very, very interesting to me as a character. I don't think she's entirely likable, but she is very fascinating, at least to me. So I'm continuing to have a good time, and I just wanted to make note of that, since, like I said, I'm not really taking notes and I wasn't sure I would remember to comment on this. But yeah, it's just interesting how these two men, who one of whom is her professor, and she obviously thinks hung the moon despite all of his flaws, compares to her colleague, her academic rival, who is this professor's only other advisee. How she starts by disdaining his presence and not wanting to be near him, and talking regretfully about their icy relationship and their rivalry. And just a third into the book, her narration is more about how perfect he is and how enigmatic he is, and in such a way that makes it seem romanticized and desirable. So it's fascinating to me. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm going to keep reading, and I will check in with y'all later. Hey y'all, quick office update, because it occurred to me that I have a baseball game tonight, and so I'm not going to be doing any reading or any updating, and I don't want to put it off for another day. So last night I basically reached the 50% mark of Katabasis. I'm probably 10 pages short of the actual 10% mark, or 50% mark, but whatever. And we have officially reached the stage of the story where our main character, Alice, is self-annihilating. She's just making really bad, self-destructive decisions that are pretty obviously poorly thought out and ill-advised to herself. And this is always the part of any book that makes me cringe and that makes me want to not read, because I'm just like, why are you doing this? I much prefer when circumstances of the plot makes things bad, not when the characters are self-inflicting their own wounds. It just makes me cringe. I do still think Alice is kind of a fascinating character. Again, she has this inferiority complex where anyone she considers better than her in any way, she kind of idolizes them. And every narration about them is how cool they are, or pretty they are, or smart, or ethereal, or enigmatic they are, which I find really fascinating. She becomes a fawn, for sure, over anyone who she perceives to be better than her. But we've also encountered a character who she thinks she is better than, and she has this level of disdain, which I feel is a little misplaced. And that has also been fascinating to witness. But again, we are to the point where she is just making really bad decisions. I think I'll get to the end of this book and say nothing, or that the entire book was one long bad decision for sure, but actually self-destructive decisions that she has convinced herself are the correct course of action. All that to say, I am still enjoying it, but I am kind of ready for things to move along. We're at the 50% mark, and they are just kind of meandering through hell together, she and her academic rival. We've encountered a antagonist situation that's interesting, and I'm interested in seeing how that will progress. But they've not made any real progress, and that is starting to feel just a tiny bit slow. So we'll see how the dynamic changes after she makes this really bad decision. Like, she's just like settled on this decision where I'm at, and I just know it's going to go very badly for her. So we'll see how that shakes out after this midpoint, and see how the dynamic changes between her and her academic rival as a result of this fiasco she is about to initiate. I would say over the last like 30 or 40 pages, I'm enjoying it less than I did at the beginning, but it's mostly just because I'm like, okay, just like, let's get a move on a little bit. And also like just the cringy elements of Alice just making just jumping to the wrong conclusions. I think I mentioned that in my last clip as well. Jumping to the wrong conclusions, and also just making so many just short-sighted leaps in logic based on incomplete information. Anyway, so like I said, I have a baseball game tonight, so I will not be reading that. But yeah, I wanted to just check in because I am going to try and get this book finished by this weekend. So I didn't want to wait too long to give you an update and then blow past the 50% mark in my haste. So I will check in with you, I guess, if I have any relevant thoughts as I read, but otherwise my next update will be when I finished the book. Hey y'all, it is now Saturday morning, and today my only plan is to finally finish out Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. Last night I did get to about the 70% mark, which means I have just about 170 pages left. So yeah, I'm closing this puppy out. So hopefully I will be talking to you in just a little while. Hey y'all, it is now Sunday morning, and I regret to say that I did not keep my promise and finish Katabasis yesterday. But never fear, because I did get up first thing this morning and make it my absolute goal to finish it out without stopping. And that is exactly what I did. I have just finished Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. My thoughts on this book are a little complicated because I do feel like the beginning was really, really strong. And as I mentioned, really spoke to certain sensibilities that I didn't even know that I had at the time. However, the more I read, the more I was just a little bit dissatisfied with the direction the book was going in, because it didn't really feel like it had real direction. It started off really strong. I think I mentioned it in one of the first clips that I love that it starts off without any sort of pussyfooting around. It like gets straight into the meat of the story. However, that turns out to be more of an illusion because that purpose feels kind of lost like 30 or 40% of the way into the book. Not lost, but muddled for sure. Not lost, but muddled for sure. It just left the last like 65% of this book feeling just a little bit aimless, which I didn't love. I didn't love the lack of drive. I just didn't love how I really didn't have a sense of what the point was. I knew what the ostensible point was, like what the central like framing was, but I also knew that that wasn't really going to be how everything turned out in the end. And so it just made the characters feel aimless and without purpose. And that wasn't really as interesting as I wanted it to be. In a way, the direction of the plot kind of mirrors the aimlessness and the loss of purpose that the main character Alice goes through as she undertakes this journey through hell. And so I can kind of see what R.F. Kuang was trying to accomplish. It just wasn't as interesting or fun necessarily to read. So that kind of put a big dent in my enjoyment. And then I also do unfortunately feel that the ending was just a little too clean for so messy a central character. We see a lot of different sides of Alice throughout this book, and not all of them are very nice or very good. Isn't necessarily a problem. You know, not all female characters need to be likable, but I feel like Kwong couldn't decide which side of things she wanted Alice to fall on. And so she ended up straddling that line between unlikable and likable in a way that made her neither and made her just sort of a hodgepodge of a character. The romantic subplot I thought was a little trite. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't really need it. In fact, I thought that the relationship between the two main characters would have been much better if it was completely professional or platonic or as rivals. I didn't need the romantic element, and it did make the ending feel, again, just a little too clean and a little too nice for, again, how messy Alice was as a person and how messy she made her own life because of her obsessions. I just wanted something a little messier for her as indicative of her whole journey and of her whole character. I don't want to spoil too much. You can't see it, but there's cat hair wafting off of him. I don't want to spoil too much, so I don't really want to go into more specifics than that, but it was just a little bit of a disappointment of an ending. I mean, it was fine as an ending. Everything was resolved in a neat little package, but I don't think I necessarily wanted that kind of ending for this particular character. But on a baseline level, I enjoyed R.F. Kuang's writing. I enjoyed the dark academia vibes. I feel like a big complaint I've seen about this book is that she just info dumps a lot and prioritizes showing off how much she researched and how much she knows about the subject she's writing about. I didn't mind that at all. I found that really interesting. Yes, it was dry at times, but again, I think my sensibilities are just tuned for that just because of my tastes. So that didn't bother me, which is why I feel like I'm struggling so much, is because like the actual reading experience was fairly enjoyable, like on a line level. I just wish that the plot was a little tighter and the ending just had the guts to be a little messier, because it did feel kind of like a cop-out ending, to be totally honest. I think where I'm settled is about a 3.5. Yeah, that feels right. I was a very strong 4 to 4.5 stars in that first 25%, but as the plot just sort of started to spread out into different directions and I just started losing it, and then that ending I just didn't love. So I believe that is going to be my final rating for Katabasis, 3.5 stars. And I'm really looking forward now to picking up Babel, which is also, you know, dark academia and maybe has a lot of what I liked about this book in it as well. That is everything that I have for you guys. It has been a long 2 weeks of reading this book, I feel like, but to be fair, I have just only started getting back into reading as a regular habit. Suffice it to say, I have not been reading every single day, especially physically. Physically is probably the most difficult for me to find time in, because when I'm at home, I have so many other things that I need and want to be doing. So with that, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate it. If you like my content and want to support the channel, please like and subscribe, or consider leaving a comment down below. But if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave me like a school-related emoji for the dark academia vibes of Katabasis. What's in my next video? In my next video, I will have my September TBR for you. Can you believe it? We're already through this first month of the channel being back. I certainly can't, but I hope you look forward to it, and I will see you then. Bye.